Sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. So it's very safe to say that the Indianapolis Colts are either one of, if not the biggest surprise in the National Football League this season. And I say this because the Colts have begun this season with an 8-3 mark, and they're currently sitting in first place in the AFC South. The biggest reason why the Colts are such a surprise this year is the fact that they came into this year with so many questions around the quarterback position, but a veteran quarterback who's in his first year with the Colts has helped to remedy a lot of their problems. And I'm talking about Daniel Jones. It's one of those where, he's been poised in the pocket for most of the year for the Colts, and he is on his way to having a career year. And as the calendar is about to change to the month of December, the Colts find themselves with a slew of big games on the docket, which are either going to make or break their postseason chances, as well as possibly determining who is going to be the starting quarterback for this team next season. Now, fresh off of their bye week this past Sunday, we saw the Colts go to Arrowhead where they took on the Kansas City Chiefs, who were very desperate for a win as they themselves are looking to hang around in the AFC playoff picture. And if you're the Colts, things could not have gotten started better for you than they did. We saw Indianapolis be able to capitalize on some miscues by the Chiefs, and they jumped out to the early 14-3 advantage. And in doing so, Daniel Jones was rolling. Now, after that early success in Kansas City, Jones and the Colts offense was just limited to a pair of field goals the rest of his way as we saw the Colts fall to the Chiefs in overtime. Now, offensively, okay, Indianapolis did have a chance to put this game away late. And I say that when it was 17-9. Had the Colts scored a touchdown there, it would have made it very difficult for the Chiefs to come back from the 24-9 deficit. Not to say that it wasn't attainable, but it would have been tougher nonetheless. And like I always say this when you're facing the Chiefs, you check so many times, talked about it, but you always have to keep your foot on the gas as an opponent, meaning you've got to score touchdowns, especially when you have the opportunity, especially in the red zone, and you've got to keep the pressure on that guy who's playing quarterback on the other side and one Patrick Mahomes. And of course, it's almost like, you're bailing him out, if you will, by, going kicking a field goal as opposed to being able to score the touchdown. But that's not to say that the Colts weren't trying because that Chiefs defense continues to be no joke. Very tough to move the ball on, very tough to score points on. Okay. And nonetheless, that's something that we saw Sunday for Indy that they are going to have to deal with coming down the stretch because we saw this Chiefs defense really take the ball out of running back Jonathan Taylor's hands and put it into the hands of Daniel Jones. In the Sunday loss to Kansas City, Jonathan Taylor only had 16 carries for 58 yards, while of course on the flip side, Daniel Jones threw the football 31 times. Overall, he was 19 of 31 for a buck 81 with two touchdowns and of course zero picks. And of course, if you're Indianapolis, as solid and as good as Daniel Jones has been playing so far this season, your bread is still buttered by what Jonathan Taylor is able to do when he's carrying the football. And I'll give you an idea of this. You look at the three losses that the Colts have had this season. The loss to the Rams, he had 17 carries for 76 yards, no touchdowns. The loss to the Steelers, 14 carries for 45 yards. And then, of course, like I said, the loss this past Sunday to the Chiefs, 16 carries for 58 yards. And for Daniel Jones, of course, he plays so much better off of that run game, kind of like what we saw from him in 2021 when he had his best season in the NFL with the Giants when they got to the postseason, where we saw Jones play off of running back Saquon Barkley. Nonetheless, getting back to Jones, 7 interceptions so far this season, 5 of those have come in Indianapolis losses. 2 were against the Rams, and then, of course, 3 in that meltdown against the Pittsburgh Steelers. But again, like I said, this is something that the Colts are going to have to deal with for the rest of the season because you look at Indianapolis's remaining schedule. They're 8-3. Okay, you've got Jacksonville right behind them, who's 7-4 in the South, and you've got the Houston Texans, who after the slow start, they're starting to heat up. They're 6-5, and the reason why is this is important. 4 out of the last 6 games for the Colts this season are coming against the Texans and the Jaguars, and it begins this Sunday at home. And of course, the Texans have themselves a ferocious defenses. This is something that the Indianapolis offense, most notably Daniel Jones, is going to have to account for. And guess what? The other 2 games on this slate for Indianapolis remaining in this regular season, they got to go to Seattle in week 15 and they get the Niners at home with that Robert Saleh led defense in week number 16. So this is why I say it's going to be money time, or it is going to be money time for Daniel Jones coming down the stretch because he's going to have to do it late in the game, and he's going to have to do it from the pocket more often than not when the game is on the line. Because I guarantee you, especially a team like the Texans, they're going to go out there, they're going to try to take Jonathan Taylor away. Okay, so I think it's going to be imperative. The Colts are going to stick with their run game. Okay, it's still their butter. But nonetheless, DJ is going to have to make some throws from the pocket to keep this thing going, and he's going to have to lead Indianapolis to touchdown drives. And if Daniel Jones is able to do that, because like I said, he's basically on his way to a career year. He threw 24 touchdowns as a rookie for the Giants back in 2019. And then, oh, pardon me, I said 2021 before when he helped the Giants get to the playoffs. It was 2022, excuse me. But nonetheless, he already has 17 TDs this season. So with 6 games left, there's a pretty good chance that Daniel Jones eclipses the numbers that he had in his rookie season. But nonetheless, let's say that Daniel Jones is able to keep this up. And let's say that the Colts get to the playoffs. He was brought in as a guy who was expected to compete with former first round pick Anthony Richardson at quarterback. If you're the Colts organization, are you ready to commit to Daniel Jones long term if he gets you to the postseason? And what do you do about Anthony Richardson? I think that is going to be an interesting question that could potentially need to be answered for this Colts team in the coming months. But nonetheless, these final 6 weeks are going to go a long way in clearing up that picture. I'll tell you like this: you go back to last Sunday's game for Indianapolis, and overall, the Colts they lost a tough one to the Chiefs, and to a man they'll tell you that they should have had that one. The penalties, the missed opportunities, you name it. And going into Arrowhead against the Chiefs is not an easy place to win a game. But nonetheless, you've got to pick up your bootstraps and you got to keep going because, again, stretch time for Indianapolis. It's critical because, like I said, Jacksonville's right there. Houston is right there as well. And I know that the Colts, they have some games that they've won over teams like the Denver Broncos, this, that, and the third. But you don't want to leave it to chance. Of course, first things first, you want to try to win your division in order to get a spot in the postseason. But nonetheless, you look at Indy's margin for error, like I said, in that division right now. It's not what it was earlier this season. And I think for them going forward, like I said, Daniel Jones is going to have to be on point. Now, like I said, the penalties were a big part of the loss to the Chiefs on Sunday. I expect Indianapolis, to clean that up. I expect them to go out there and make a profound effort to get Jonathan Taylor and this ground game going. And of course, if they get him going, it sets up so much for their passing game. But like I said, DJ's going to have to bring the lumber and he's going to have to make the plays when his number is called on. So, like I said, it's going to be interesting to see coming down the stretch for the Indianapolis Colts. I'll tell you like this: coming into the year, I clearly did not expect them to be in this position. And like I said, so many questions about the quarterback position. And Daniel Jones, to his credit, is showing what he can do when he has the right pieces around him. Because you look at it, Tyler Warren, he's only a rookie, But I saw the potential in this kid at Penn State, and of course, it is transferred over to the National Football League. And a good tight end is always a security blanket for a quarterback. And then, of course, like I said, the ability for Jonathan Taylor and this ground game to get things going. Another best friend of a quarterback right there. So it makes things a little bit easier for Daniel Jones, but nonetheless, he's going to have to make some plays coming down the stretch for the Colts. But nonetheless, Indy is in a position that I did not expect them to be in coming into the start of this season. But nonetheless, let's see if they can seal the deal and win the AFC South. And if they do, number 17 is definitely going to have a hand in it. But folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank each and every one of you for checking out the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. And as always, if you like what you heard and saw in this podcast, you know what to do. Just hit that like button as well as subscribing to this channel. And like I always say, it's greatly appreciated. Also, folks, if you are on the X, formerly known as Twitter, please feel free to check me out at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you give me that follow, it will be my pleasure to do the same in return. And that also goes for Instagram, where you can check me out at 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge. Also, if you are on Facebook, definitely check out the Sports Depot 365. And as far as I'm concerned, one of the better sports groups going on social media. But until next time, fine folks, my name is William Martin. I'm signing off and I'm saying thanks once again for checking out the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. Be well, everybody.